Of course, Thanksgiving is my favorite day of the year. The most important thing of all is the apple pie for me. I think apple pie should be really simple, it should taste like apples, but we're gonna give you some instruction about how to make pie pastry, how to roll out pie pastry, how to form the pie, and what goes into the pie. So let me start with an apology because I'm about to annoy most of you because I've made hundreds of pies, a couple hundred apple pies, and I have very strong feelings, as everybody in Mill Street knows about this. So the basic formula for pie, any kind of American pie, is this: 1.25 cups of flour, tablespoon of sugar, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're doing a double crust pie, it's apple pie of course, 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a little bit of salt, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So that's the basic American pie dough formula. I'll just pulse that. The fat. So traditionally people used leaf lard, and I use that too. Actually, I have some in my refrigerator in Vermont that one of my kids made. The stuff you buy in the supermarket is not leaf lard, that is, it's fat from other places in the pig, so I don't highly recommend that. What I do recommend is half butter, that's 8 tablespoons of butter, and half vegetable shortening, preferably not hydrogenated. You want to chill the butter for about 15 minutes in the freezer once you cut it up. So the reason you use a combination is the lard, the vegetable shortening, gives you slightly better texture. So put that in. And then the butter, of course, is there for flavor. Now, please sit down because I'm really going to annoy you now. Every bloody recipe for pie pastry talks about not cutting the fat all the way into the flour. It's true that in American pie pastries, there usually are bigger pieces of fat, and people think that makes a flakier dough. The problem with that is it makes it really hard to create a dough that's easy to work with. So my strong suggestion to you is cut the fat into the flour. And you can get a great pie dough by cutting it in. So I'm gonna cut it in. Maybe 12 1-second pulses. So now you can really see that's the right texture. Now, some people suggest adding the water to the food processor. That's a mistake because you want to get your hands on this to really feel when you've added enough. I see recipes that say for 1.25 cups flour, 3 to 4 tablespoons of water, so it would be 6 to 8 tablespoons for double that. Forget that. It's totally useless. So I just have a bunch of water here and I don't measure it. If you don't add enough water, you're not going to be able to roll it out. It's going to fall apart. It's going to be too dry. So I would rather have enough water so it really comes together. Now you can see it's starting to come together. Now what I do, once I have that, I'll add a little bit of flour back to the bowl. It's very malleable. So your number one objective in making pie dough is creating something you can work with. You can actually get it rolled out to 12 or 14 inches, whatever you need to do, and get it into the pie pan. If you can't do that, you're not going to make a pie. So now I'm just going to cut it. Okay. So now we're just going to cover it and wrap or put it in a bag. I suggest you do this the day before, leave it in the fridge overnight. It'll hydrate evenly, it'll rest. So we're going to put these in the fridge, let everything relax, and we'll come back and start rolling out. So, rolling 101. If it's really hard, you might beat it up a little, and then use a little bit of flour on the top, not too much. A tapered rolling pin is great if you're making circles, obviously. The objective here is to put if your right hand, your left hand here, and then roll in an arc like that, about a 90-degree arc. Turn the dough, do it again. If you see an edge that's too thick, you'd roll over it a little bit more. So now you're starting to get to like 10 inches or so. And this is the part when you change up the method. So you flip that on the rolling pin. So if I see, for example here, maybe I want to extend that out a little bit, right? So it's a combination of that same turn, but then I'm also rolling from the center out to make sure that it's a real circle. So I'm just going to put this on the baking sheet We'll put that in the fridge while we're preparing the apples. The whole point of an apple pie is the apples. And so some of the old varieties, sheep nose, Rhode Island greening, Braeburn, some of these had kind of rough skins, but a lot of them had interesting flavors. They weren't just sweet. If you can find those apples, just get a whole bunch of them. Use 3 or 4 varieties, throw them together in a pie. That's what makes a great apple pie. The problem with apple pies now is apples are very one-dimensional. The other thing you have to think about is some apples are pie apples, that is, they don't break down as much as others. The McIntosh breaks down. The Granny Smith, which I think is the most hideous apple ever invented, has horrible skin, it's kind of dry, but it's great when you bake with it. So just as a fail-safe, half Macs, half Grannies. I usually put a fair amount of lemon juice in them, tends to keep them from oxidizing. There are a lot of things you can put in here. The first thing you can put in here is a little lemon zest. I don't think that's very controversial. We'll start with 1/3 cup of sugar. Add some salt. A lot of recipes don't add salt, which is kind of crazy. Flour, and that'll help thicken them a little bit. So I'll just put in a tablespoon. And now we get to the $1 million ingredient, which is, ta-da, the cinnamon. Cinnamon is probably the strongest spice in your cabinet drawer, at least for baked goods, right? The problem is it's going to overcome the flavor of the apples, and hopefully you've spent time to get some nice apples. So I'll use maybe 1/4 teaspoon, okay? You just want a hint of cinnamon. And if you like, a little nutmeg. I'm just going to use my hands. Okay. So we're going to put the pastry over, obviously, the pie plate. You want to make sure it's really down into the plate. Then the question is, how much dough do you leave outside of the rim? So I'm going to go in and get pretty close to the edge of the pie plate. You put your fingers underneath it. I can feel where the edge is. Now, I don't know if we're going to get all of these in there, so I'm just going to put as many as I can in. That's about it, I think. The next question is, how much overlap do I leave on the top crust? I'd leave about that much, because I'm going to take the top crust and put it underneath the bottom crust. Hopefully that way we're going to seal in, the juices aren't going to leak out the side. Okay. I don't like using the fork method. I like this method better. All right, that's pretty good. Vents, yes, you need some vents. I just do one in the center and then one each on either side. Now, I found, oddly enough, the water gives you a nice, clean glaze with the sugar. I don't like that sort of dark yellowish color you get from the egg. It looks like it's a little old to me. By the way, anytime I make an apple pie, this is the best part of the day because you're finished. You're just sprinkling the sugar on. It's going into the oven. All the anxieties about making the pie are over. It's time to sit down and relax. And then it's about 1 tablespoon or 2 of sugar. Be generous with it. And you'll be surprised what a really nice shiny glaze you're going to get with the sugar. You're going to want to start this in a 425 oven for 20 minutes or so. Reduce the oven to 375. With those cuts here, you want to see the bubbles coming up. You want to see the juice bubbling. What you want to make sure is the crust actually gets cooked through. And also that browning is going to give you a lot of flavor. So that doesn't look bad, does it? I like the fact it doesn't have that yellowish sort of old Dutch masters look to it with the egg yolk. What you want in that first bite is you want fresh apple taste. You want the citrus, you want fresh fruit. You don't want it to taste old. You don't want it to taste like, my mother's spice drawer, which had been around for 20 years. Bright, fruity, buttery, flaky pie dough. The texture of that combined with the apple. This is nature's most perfect food. So this is my recipe, our recipe here at Milk Street for a great apple pie. Please give it a shot because I think once you try this style, it's clean and natural and bright. I think you'll decide this will be your favorite apple pie as well. And a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. And please serve apple pie.